Good evening and welcome to Courageous Woman Magazine Live, the show where powerful women share powerful stories. We're diving in deep into conversations that empower, inspire, and ignite transformation. And I am your host, Dr. Talisha Berry. Tonight we're going to be talking to the Reverend Dr. LaTonia Taylor on the mother wound. It's going to be a spectacular show tonight. So make sure that you have invited all your friends, your sister friends, and share. It's going to be an amazing conversation. So get ready, get ready. I have a statistic that I wanted to share with you about the mother wound. The mother wound refers to the emotional trauma carried from childhood into adulthood, often due to a mother's emotional unavailability, criticism, or disengagement. The trauma can affect how women show up in their relationships and how they view themselves. That is taken from charliehealth.com. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to just get right into my guest. Yes, my guest. Let's get started with the show. My guest tonight is the Reverend Dr. LaTonia Taylor. She is a transformational psychology educator, currently in currently empowering the next generation of enlightened leaders, serving as a prevost mentor for spiritual entrepreneurs and master executive coach in the marketplace, serving multiple media and as a producer and spiritual educator, plus author, priest, certified holistic health practitioner. She's doing amazing things. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me, Dr. LaTonia Taylor.
Thank you for having me.
We got stuff going on over here. Yes, thank you for being here. This is a really serious conversation that we're going to have tonight. There's so many women who may be dealing with issues with their moms and didn't really know that it was really an issue.
Right.
And not understanding the wounds that affect us. Me personally have had to deal with mother and daddy wounds. So I am, just very open to this conversation. And I hope that you that are watching will share with other women that may have had to experience some challenges in their relationships with their mother. So we're going to get into it tonight.
Yes.
We're going to get into this very serious conversation. One of my first questions is about the mother wound. Tell us a little bit about that as it relates to your work and who you are, what you do. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you started with this.
Well, I call myself a multiplier because I am a multi-purpose. A lot of times people want to put you in one box, in one category. And because I've been able to move in and out of different industries, I have continued to see the same theme show up in women at all levels, in all walks of life. And because it's not just the corporate woman or the woman that is on drugs, for instance, right? That's two different worlds in many ways. Well, some would argue with that, but what you have here is one obvious wound that you can see, and then there is the one that's covered up by achievements, titles, and performance. Mm-hmm. So in my range of working in ministry, where you meet people from all walks of life, and then working in production where women are watching women on television thinking that they have it together because they might have red bottoms on, or they may have a husband, or they may have the house and the car, but you don't know what is really motivating that particular thing. So that shows up everywhere all the time.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I understand that. A lot of us say you see the glory, but you don't know the story.
Yes. Yes. That's what
yes. So what exactly how does the mother womb affect us emotionally and psychologically across different areas of our life?
Emotionally, it can affect every woman different. Like if I was to say one woman is emotionally unavailable, another woman, it may manifest as overcompensating. So particularly mothers where this is a generational thing. Because oftentimes the young woman who has the mother wound, when she finally talks to her mother also has one, and it can show up as misunderstanding, breakdown in communication, sometimes even mirroring. What I mean by mirroring is the mother has the same needs as her daughter. And because the mother's needs were never met, she doesn't know how to meet the needs of her own daughter because she didn't have a model. So
Mhm.
so that way it can show up in terms of the emotions, particularly arguments, disappointments, criticism, um, never feeling like what you do is enough to please that mother. So the daughter oftentimes feels criticized, but sometimes a mother can also feel very defeated as well because she's trying to do something. Maybe her love language is different than her daughter's love language. Mentally, it has a strong grip on a woman for years. Let me say that again, years into her life. Sometimes it takes a woman becoming a grandmother before she heals her own mother wound.
Mm, wow. So what are some of the ways that people who are have their to kind of break the generational stigma of, like the mother, she really didn't know that she was causing the issues, and when she realizes she wants to, kind of rectify that, sometimes, I don't know, some issues it may be too late. What are some of the things that she can do, so that it doesn't continue on to the next generation or her grandchildren?
What are some of the things the mother can do, correct?
Hmm.
Well, some of the things that a mother could do is learn how to ask and not just tell. A lot of times mothers are telling what to do, how to do, what to, you know, but never ask a question. How do you feel? What do you think about this? Meaning, in other words, I'm saying to have a conversation. I would say even the most important thing than that is keeping in mind that these girls, young girls, they don't respect. This generation does not want your representative. They want the real you. And depending on your references in terms of your religion, your own personal development work, a lot of girls have their mother's representatives and they see the conflict, they see the hypocrisy. And so, therefore, if you are only bringing your representative, and this generation is the call out generation, then they'll call you out, right? The other thing is so that's two things. The third thing is to apologize. After I have done the work with women, oftentimes, or while we're in the work, particularly if it's a mother who is just realizing what she's done and her children are grown, I work with her in creating an atonement with her children. You know, my
Mm.
mother, I have a mother wound. And the only thing that would open up conversation is after I've had an upset and I was expressive. Now, some girls are not expressive. I would be pleading for, sometimes arguing for, sometimes, and look like talking back. But some of the things that my mother would say to me sometimes would be so harsh, so horrible, that if I didn't say anything, I can only imagine how crushed I would be. But my mother would always apologize once I brought certain things to her attention, even if she didn't like it.
Mm.
Now, I will
Wow.
say we have to be careful with that too, because abuse or abusers are oftentimes known for apologizing after they have. Now, physical abuse is easy to identify, but emotional abuse, a lot of times you have mothers who've never said, I apologize, I didn't know any better, I should have done this, but I didn't know how. These things make a world of difference in beginning to bridge the gap.
Hmm. I think, in my era growing up, typically moms or the kids were told, you don't talk back, and
Yeah.
that was it. If you express yourself, then you're talking back, and they didn't
Yes.
understand
Yes.
that there was issues that we need to resolve, and
Hmm.
it's better to communicate and talk about it. But a lot of times we didn't know how to articulate that we're having an issue, or this is even a wound that's developing. uh,
Yes.
yeah, so a lot of
And
times.
you're absolutely right. The generation makes a difference, because if you don't understand what generation your mother comes from, then you won't understand why she won't talk, why she holds this particular boundary or that type of thing. And so it's not your job though, as the daughter, to fix it. And that is a dangerous line between expressing yourself or asking questions than trying to fix her. There is a
Mm,
place of mental health that a wounded daughter has to sometimes accept, that her mother may not have the capacity to
mhm,
give her what she needs. That's
mhm,
why this wound is never to be underestimated. It never goes away. The
mhm,
only way that it can be healed is mother to daughter. The same way she had you, there's that connection to that umbilical cord. But
mhm,
there are times when your mother has just does not have the capacity to be able to give you what you need. And so then there's a whole nother process that has to happen, of being able to accept, to heal, to function, to supply yourself or reparent yourself with the things that you never had or that you never knew. And that is where sisterhood comes in. That's how come
mhm,
every woman is we, no matter if that's our girlfriend, we sisterhood is mothering. And
mhm.
sometimes
Absolutely.
that's the only way that we know
Mhm,
how to be mothered.
mhm. Absolutely. I totally get that part. Having mother wounds and issues of myself, and having to um, create my own coping mechanisms to, and finally realizing that I was not going to get what I was looking for. I didn't even know how to articulate what I really wanted and needed, and it may have come across the wrong way, and just finally get to a point where I'm not going to get that. And that's a hard place to accept that it's not going to change.
Yes, that is probably the most difficult things to accept, even after you've communicated, because oftentimes we have an agenda with communication,
Mm,
hoping that what we say is going to change the behavior, but there's a possibility that it may not change. This is where boundaries come in, and this is why you see some of the younger generation holding. And I say, when I say younger, I mean like Gen Z, some millennials, but this the ones younger than millennials, Gen Z, they're going no contact, completely no contact with a toxic mother or an abusive mother. Now, I do think that that's a bit of an extreme, but there may be a period. Sometimes therapists recommend that you go no contact for a period, because it can be necessary in order not to not continuously re-traumatize yourself. The other level is limited contact. You know, you're in communication. You don't expect that that's going to be your girlfriend, or that's going to be the person that you can divulge your information to. Because see, the issue for girls, oftentimes when you can't feel safe with your own mother, it will show up in all of your relationships and in the world. Because any room that you enter into, you do not feel safe with, particularly other women. But where you really don't feel safe is with your identity. Because mother teaches you by demonstration or directly who you are. Who am I? You look at your mother, whether even if she's not there that much, if she works a lot, you look at that, the absence. Father teaches you how to use your identity out in the world, how to convey it, how to express it, how to use your confidence to move in the world. So the father is about movement, but the mother is about sitting in the identity of who I am. Because see, when you look at your genealogy is determined by your mother's line. Your tribe, your wealth is determined by your mother's line. Well, your father gives you identity that is connected to some things in epigenetics, if you will. But when we're talking about identity in who I feeling like I know who I am, it comes from watching your mother, how she moves, how she speaks, how she's loved. Because sometimes it's not always, the wound is not always direct, it's not always overt. If a daughter is witnessing her mother not be loved well, or be bitter and or broken or working all the time. I mean, I have facilitated sessions with young girls who are so tuned in, and I'm talking about, we would consider them babies to Dr. Talisha. But they're coming here so spiritual, so tuned, that the thing that, like, the mother, I've seen situations where the mother's chasing the bag. I'm pausing for somebody watching to receive that. We got a lot of people chasing the bag, the notoriety, and the daughter wants no part of it. They don't want any part of that, and they're like, that's fake, that's phony, you're not this, but you're so and you know what, mothers and daughters do this anyway. There's a bit of that between a mother and her daughter anyway.
Yeah, I can identify with that. I have 3 lovely daughters, adults. So I definitely can identify with that. Why is this subject so sensitive and taboo, especially when it comes to families and communities of color?
You know, I that's such a good question, because Black women in particular, in our community, it is an unspoken rule. Don't say that about your mother.
That's your mama.
Don't say that she did the best she could, or whatever the excuse was. And that is gaslighting and shutting down that the person that's seeking answers. And I cannot tell you how many times I experienced that in my family. And I was reaching out to elders, her peers, and the dismissal was more wounding, because it almost makes you feel like you're a little crazy or something's wrong with you for saying anything, just because your mother provided, or because she's single and she's stretched. But it does go back to that generational conversation. So for instance, I want to give some references for people watching. The silent generation is notorious for don't talk back to me, children stay in your place, and they raise baby boomers and some Gen Xers. And then you have baby boomers who didn't want anything to do with all the things that the silent generation represented, from sharecropping to farming, agriculture, and that type. This is the generation that went off to college, got a little education. So they disassociated with a lot of what was really our wealth back then, but they disassociated with a lot of those things. And those women also became very focused on climbing the corporate ladder.
Mhm.
And so baby boomers put a lot of responsibilities on children. This is where you get the term latchkey children, the children raising themselves. This is where Gen X now comes in. So now you have Gen I'm a proud Gen Xer. And so you have Gen X that is really the unknown factor. It could go any way with us.
Mhm.
and um and then you still have some boomers who gave birth to millennials, and then you have both Gen X and boomers who did things like, well, I don't want my child to go through what I went through. So many women and men thought that their work, their things, their supply of material possessions should be enough, that communicated and conveyed the love, the attention, the quality time. That did not happen. And so the gap gets filled in, from one generation to another. Now you have millennials that come out. We have the internet now, right? And so now everybody has social media and people are talking. They're using their diary as a diary. When I first started this work, Dr. Felicia, that people did not talk about the mother wound. Now you just put in mother wound, and there's a whole podcast dedicated to the Black mother wound.
Mm.
I mean, I could just go on and on about the levels of this particular place of healing. It's so tender because of that programming. And it doesn't mean that you're ungrateful to be able to deal with how you were hurt by somebody that you love. It doesn't mean that you are erasing the aha moments of like, oh, I understand my mother now. Oh, I see why she didn't have this. It doesn't erase that, because then that also sets up so many alternate identities in order to cope, in order to compensate for what you didn't have. Now, so because you're talking about, now I can't talk about it, and if I say something about it, then they're going to think or whatever is the case. And so I think the Bible says it like this, young men for war, old men for counsel. And
Mm.
we are the aunties now. So if you're a mother, or the younger generation, doesn't matter if you're a mother or not, they call you auntie. So just for those
Mhm.
watching, so we
Mhm.
have a responsibility to talk openly about this. We
Mhm.
have a responsibility to have more conversations like this, and have other young women, young mothers, young wives present, because it does show up in your relationship. It shows up in your love,
Mhm.
your sex life, and your money. A lot of people miss the connection to the money. And this is why many young women are filling the gap with the bag, with
Mhm.
being an influencer, or the acquisition of whatever outside, because they're trying to fill a hole the size of their mother on the inside.
Mhm. Wow. Wow. So, what are some of the common relationship patterns and struggles you see in daughters who are trying to or who are carrying unhealed mother wounds?
Definitely low self-esteem.
Mm.
And low self-esteem, let me say this, is not as obvious as many people think. Because today, low self-esteem shows up as arrogance. Low self
Mm.
It's the opposite end. Low
Mhm.
self-esteem shows up um being guarded,
Mhm.
self-protection. So when a person already has this guard up, it shows up as a lot of mouth, attack, blame. Um, in psychology, they have a term called rejection sensitivity disorder, RSD, that stems from ADHD. Now, I'm not trying to get technical with a lot with a lot of this. What I'm saying is that if you have a mother that had postpartum syndrome or some form of depression or ADD or ADHD, and it's gone undiagnosed all of her life, it could show up in many different forms that are negative, and we attach it to, oh, she has an attitude, oh, she's being difficult, um, or she's angry all of the time.
You mean for the daughter?
For the daughter or the mother, because
Okay.
it's not like the apple does not fall far from the tree. It's as much as the meditation, the secret meditation is, I don't want to be anything like my mother. Spiritually, metaphysically, you are attracting that. Everybody knows about the law of attraction and love to talk about the law of attraction in terms of money. But that law of attraction also shows up in our process of healing, because what you resist, it will persist. You will continue to attract the lesson in your relationships. You'll attract the lesson in your money. You'll attract the lesson in your in it's when it's time to get vulnerable. So any space that requires your vulnerability, oftentimes that's when that wound will show up and fracture how you show up. I mentioned rejection sensitivity disorder. There's so many new terms for unhealed wounds now. It's kind of ridiculous. And some psychologists don't even think that this is a real thing, as if we need another thing. But there are women also talking about how, like, I didn't know that I had this, that, or the other, and had I known, I could have dealt with it. And I'm talking about both mothers and both daughters as well.
Wow. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of us don't realize that, for me, for myself, of having to have dealt with issues, constantly trying to not only identify them and suppress them and make sure that I don't bring them to my own children or my own daughters particularly. But I've seen some of them show up, so I'm constantly, you know consulting and counseling, and when I see some of me. So, I'm just being transparent here. I'm being for real about this, because this is a really, really good conversation. So I appreciate this conversation. Any of you that want to be part of the after show, the link is there. We will be just further discussing this after this show. Maybe we'll get a little more deeper, a little more personal, for those of who you may have personal questions that you haven't answered here. But thank you. I appreciate this conversation. So let's keep it moving for a few more minutes.
Okay.
How does a long-standing breakdown between a mother and a daughter affect a woman's career? We touched a little bit about that, but particularly in the financial decisions, whether it's for their job, whether if they have a business, just how does it affect just the overall thinking about finances?
You know how two things immediately come dropped in when you ask that question is, how in business we oftentimes have sessions and write about and articles about imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
That's one way that it shows up in our career, is that no matter how much you do, no matter how many accolades you have, there's this nagging feeling of that imposter syndrome. The second way that dropped in to identify is the relationship with lack consciousness, worry about money, anxiety about money, or only being identified through external worth as well. So when you don't have it, there's an inner conversation that happens. Because, see, why is this? Is because money oftentimes is about security.
Mm-hmm.
And if your mother didn't have it, and the only way that you know how to get it is through survival mechanisms, sometimes even achievement, overachievement. I'm gonna do everything, try to do everything right. I'm gonna try to be perfect so I don't get in trouble or so that I can get love. Then it becomes very a woman, particularly high achieving women, can become very performative, very transactional, and no substance. This has so many other spiritual implications as well, because again, we're talking about vulnerability. And oftentimes a high achieving woman never wants to, or has been programmed to be to think that she should never be seen as a victim. So therefore, you have a lot of women who are suffering in silence. They're significant in public. They have the significant brands, the significant titles, the significance of other people applauding her. But at home, she's fractured. She has a broken heart. And the person that broke her heart is her mother.
Hmm.
And that's difficult sometimes for a woman to say to another woman that my heart is broken. You broke me. You broke my heart. You disappointed me. You hurt me. You weren't there for me. Particularly when what you said, Dr. Talisha, like when you come from a generation of, you know, don't say that to me. I have even done processes
I'm the
for,
mother. You don't say that to me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've done processes for women who've lost their mother, and it never was healed, so it's like an open wound. And and being able to close that wound is a powerful thing. And just talking about it is a beginning, but it's not, that's not the real healing work. Listen, I can't tell you how many women I work with who have been violated in numerous ways and have never gone to therapy, have never had any type of therapeutic support. We have to stop this. And a lot of them are in the front of the room with the microphone. That's dangerous because you have so many powerful women leading women, and they're broken too. And they're not telling anybody that they're broken, that they're hurt, that this is how whatever happened to me. Sometimes it's more acceptable for women to talk about sexual abuse or physical abuse than it is the abuse that she may have experienced in her own family emotionally, because that emotional abuse is so invisible.
Yeah. I know that. I know that, personally, we can stand up in front of a room and smile and empower and educate and do all of the things when we are also hurt and broken.
And I
So
can tell you a personal story really quickly. I'll take 30 seconds. I literally was that woman in many ways. I was working in ministry, and I'm a very eclectic woman, mystic, if you will, in terms of my work. But I came through traditional spaces, traditional religion, that type of, and a lot of the ministers and pastors who are my friends would love to talk to me in private, and they would even, I'd hear my words coming back across the pulpit, the platforms that they were on, but some of them would never invite me to their platforms. Well, it was triggering because I couldn't understand how I was good enough for them in private but not in public. Not everybody, but I'm just giving you an example of what was happening internally. And one day the Holy Spirit said to me, why does it matter so much? Well, see, I could, for months, I had different answers for why it matters so much, until I kept on doing the work, using my own tools, getting therapy, even taking the risk of having difficult conversations with my friends who were, you know, in my estimation, wounding me too, re-wounding me, only for me to realize that the depth of that issue was coming from the desire to be accepted and acknowledged by my own mother. That's how it will show up. It will show up with you trying to find other spaces to accept you, to attach, or to explain why, that you belong, because you want to belong to something, to someone. And this is also how women end up in the in the arms of, one person after another, because they're looking for that type of nurture and acceptance.
Hmm. Let me read some of our people are here. Uh, Caroline says, "You hit the head. Wearing masks, you have to answer the unheard cries. You cannot conquer what you don't confront."
That's right. That was the game changer for me, Carolyn, is when I literally had to confront myself, though. See, a lot of times we want to go. I've talked so many women off the ledge of going to confront her mother. That's also now it can work. It can, but it could be so messy and such a fallout. And this is how we get the breakdown that happens. But it really is when you do your work for yourself, so that when you are ready to have the conversation with the mother or the subject, let's say, because this is not just about mother in this case, with the subject of the upset,
Mm-hmm.
you're not as triggered. You're not going in with as raw. So it's not going to infect you again. But when you do your work in therapy or in coaching or processes, now I do believe women need to go through processes. We are tribal people. And the truth is, tribal people do not have one mother. There
Mm-hmm.
are many mothers in the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we have aunties and grandmothers. And I see young women right now. This is something that the young women now are doing. They're protecting, because they were so defenseless. They're protecting their children. And now they're raising their children without asking for any help, no one can say anything to you about your child. Nobody can tell you anything about your child. That is also unhealthy. We need each other, and you
Mm-hmm.
need another woman to guide you, because we put all of this weight on one person to be our
Mm-hmm.
salve.
Mm-hmm.
That is incorrect. We have
Especially if they're also wounded.
especially if they're also wounded, but we've also always been tribal, where we've
Mm-hmm.
had a grandmother, a auntie, a big
Mm-hmm.
mama, somebody right next door who would be the supply, the balance of mother. And I
Mm-hmm.
thank God that I had that. There were
Yeah.
often so many times that there were my mother's friends mothered me more than my mother.
Mm. I definitely can relate to that. I was raised by my grandparents, so I totally understand. My mom was there. I had aunties on both sides, so I definitely had. It was the tribal effect, you
Mhm,
know, and so we don't realize that at the time, but it's so needed. When I look back, it was so needed, so vital in my life to have that support system of grandma, big, you said them, grandmama, mama, grandma,
big
aunties, big
mama.
mamas, a couple of big mamas, and then they were gone, and now it's the cycle, of life now that I'm now the auntie, I'm now the grandmama and the grandmama, you
Yes,
know,
yes.
so, and the
Mhm.
cycle just continues. So
Yeah.
it's it's us. What do we do at this point when we realize, because we are now coming to ourselves and realizing that there may have been some issues that we didn't call issues. We didn't know that it was really a issue that have come from our mother womb that has now come into our adult life. What do we do at this point? What are some of the strategies that we can use at this point to kind of help subside some of those, situations with our daughters and
Run,
some.
don't walk, run. The same way you would for a Black Friday special. Run. to get the healing.
Mm.
Because we have not, because we ask not. It's not going to just be done in church on Sunday for that 1 hour. It's not. You
Mhm.
you need, sis, if you're watching, you need a space where someone is looking into you.
Mm.
So whether that is therapy, whether that is private coaching, in my cases, I specialize in processes, because one of the things that we have always had, and we see other cultures have it and we
Mhm.
downplay it, and that's rites of passage. That's why you see people have bar mitzvahs, right? You see that there's one for the boys and there's one for the girls. There's the other cultures that have special ceremonies for coming into womanhood. We must return to this. We have to talk to girls about the phases of womanhood that they go through and celebrate each other more, because it happens when we gather. It happens when we sit down and tell stories with one another, to one another. But when there is a toxic situation where there has been abuse, sometimes there needs to be a period and some even years of therapy. There are books now that women can go to, and so there's no reason in this age of information to sit and suffer in silence. At this point, there's sometimes a honorary choice, uh, that, well, it is what it is. I've heard that as well. We can't accept that. And what happens for a lot of young women who are motivated by only having, let's say, a man, a marriage, or the money, when that's taken away, then they want to do the work. Don't wait until you have a crisis. Be
Mhm.
proactive and seek it. Because
Mhm.
everything you seek is seeking you. If you're
Mm.
seeking love, love is seeking you. If you're seeking
Mhm.
healing, healing is seeking you. But if you're seeking to hide, to run, to wait, to do fight or flight, because a lot of women are fighting and fighting their mothers and their men, or they're fighting other women in organizations. And we see women fighting on television now. That's not even a real reality for most of us. But now our young people don't know the difference. And that's why you have bad girls clubs and baddies.
Mhm.
I'm getting ready to go. The reason why I have a hard stop is I have to go and facilitate a session with young girls right now who are adjudicated. And what is their
Mm.
issue? Anger. And anger can be another form of grief.
Mm. Wow. I mean, this conversation can go on and on and on. It's so deep. It's so much more that we want to talk about. That's why we're going to have the after show. But I have just a couple more questions that I
Okay,
want
go ahead.
that we ask. I mean, this one is for the men. Does a
Mm,
mother wound affect men as well?
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
how does it
Absolutely.
show up differently in their lives?
Okay, so for men, sometimes he's trying to find his mother in between the legs of another woman, and this is why you have men who chronically cheat, who chronically
Mm.
are have whorish ways, because they're looking for mother in the legs and the bosoms of other women. So they're womanizers oftentimes. But it also,
Explain that a little bit more. You said that. Let's stop right there. Explain that a little bit more so that's clear. Y'all listening? I wanted to make sure that's clear.
a lot of times, the classic sign of a wounded man by his mother is how he treats women. But when it's chronic, when it's just like it's ridiculous, a lot of times he's looking for his mother or the access to his mother's heart. Because you got to remember, there are a lot of women who are raising men, and they're angry with the men that left them.
Mm.
So you have a lot of broken little boys that's overcompensating through porn, right? Through sexual activity, and of course other things. But men also who are wounded by their mother can be very critical of women, have a lot to say about women. And usually they can be very angry in terms of like, I know every wife, every woman can relate to this. You could say one thing to this man, and it is just as if you shot him down. Oftentimes he's been so criticized and so controlled and so beat down that it reminds him of the mother wound in a man is also is just as significant. It kind of manifests different, a little different, but imagine two people with the same wound in a relationship. It's happening because we attract our lessons. Now, I want you to hear that again. We attract our lessons. Anything that we have not healed, we will attract again in our relationships. And that's why we have the statistics that we have on marriage and relationships. The biggest trick that has been played on us is not physical slavery, but it is the breakdown of our families. Because the family is everything. And I didn't know this. And I'm saying this with all of this power and all of that. But I don't come from a family that necessarily has these tools. I have a lot of accomplished women, a very matriarchal ran family. A lot of the women were divas. I mean, I love the women in my family. However, this was not something that I knew. I was trying to get as far away from the family that hurt me as possible. But this is how we create economy. This is how we create strategy. But we want to go do that a lot of times in a sister group, but we can't do it in our own families because of the breakdown. Because many of us are prodigal daughters, prodigal sons, broken in like we don't want anything to do with, especially if you're the black sheep, if you're the one that has been rejected and despised, or the one that is the truth teller that calls things out. It's very easy. And I want to say this real quick, Talisha. Dr. Talisha, I want to say this real quick. It's very easy in many families to focus on daddy, the daddy that was not there. And he takes the brunt oftentimes of the reason why there's a breakdown in the family. And when you start doing your work, you might be surprised that the real wound that you're protecting is the mother wound, because she's the most protected wound. Daddy is not he's been the target by the Washington Post, by this magazine and that magazine, particularly the black man, as not being there. But the mother that's left there is the one that's carrying off all the anger, the frustration, and the rage. So mother is not off the hook. And honestly, I believe that when we do more of this, we're going to see so much healing in our communities, because mother is everything spiritually as well. Even that has been erased from our religion. How come we give so much? So much. Okay, let me stop. I won't go there because
like I said, this is a really strong conversation, and we can go on and on. Listen, we need to have some books, some movies, some conferences going on seriously, because this is affecting our communities. This is affecting our mothers and the new grandmamas. You know what I mean? They already have had these issues, and now this is coming up, and now we're realizing, and even like you just said, it's the women are not off the hook when we come through challenging relationships. You know what I mean? It goes deeper than that.
So much deeper.
So much deeper than, I'm not letting the brothers off the hook that weren't doing the right thing either. But but when we dig into it, like you said, we really unpack the whole situation. You go all the way back and see even how you even got into a relationship where it was abusive from the first place. You know what I'm saying? What was it? What was those conditions in your life, in your mind, in your mindset? What was that wound that you had that even allowed you to be in that relationship and stay in that relationship. Now you got kids in the relationship that are dealing with the wounds.
Yes. Yes, especially if mother was not satisfied, if she settled. If you were a daughter witnessing your mother settle, there's a secret resentment in the daughter for the mother.
Wow.
Now,
Say that again.
how is a daughter going to approach her mother about her settling and putting up with foolishness? It doesn't necessarily have to be abuse. Sometimes you have women who are older, come on now, let's talk about it, who stayed in relationships for financial reasons and they were unhappy. Your daughter was watching you, but she couldn't call you out because you wasn't going to let her call you out. She couldn't tell you about yourself. So,
or you didn't really know about yourself, and
you didn't
she
know
didn't
about
know
yourself.
why you didn't know about yourself. So
yes.
Wow. You know, like I said, we can go on and on with this conversation, and we're going to unpack it a little bit. I know you got things you got going on. If anybody wants to come to the after show, the link is up there, and you can log on as soon as we leave here for just a few minutes. If you had an additional question, I have posted a lot of the questions here. I appreciate all of you who are commenting. Those mean a lot. They help us move forward and help us, you know, what you all want to hear from Courageous Woman Magazine Live. What kind of guests did you want here? So if anyone wants to be a guest, you're definitely welcome to submit at courageouswomanmag.com and email us at info@courageouswomanmagazine.com. This has been an amazing conversation. I know we could go on and on and on, but I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being on Courageous Woman. You have been here. You've been on our cover as well. I wanted to share that. You've been
I'm so honored.
Courageous Woman Magazine. Yes.
Thank
So she's
you.
been on our cover, her cover story. You can go to courageouswomanmag.com and read about her. There's a couple of things on our website. She also have an article about this topic, the mother womb, on courageouswomanmag.com. Thank you for being here. It was so much more I wanted to talk about, but you know what? Sometimes it is what it is. You know, you really shared a lot. We got a lot of insight. I know I did. For me, even personally, as a person who has been wounded, had dealt with mother wounds, that I didn't realize that, you know, how wounded or what that really was about. So I appreciate this conversation, and I hope those of you, there's still more comments coming in. Let me share some of these comments. Yes, thank you for Darv Jean. Thank you for that. It has been a very impactful conversation. Thank you.
I see the Rebirth Tribe is in the house.
Yes, thank y'all for coming in.
Yes.
Yes, that's what it takes. It takes a tribe, you know, to do what we do. And I appreciate what you do and what you have, what you continue to do to serve and to support women, because we need you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Your mother has a story. Just know that.
And my mama, yes, everybody, especially me personally. I wrote about my story. I thought I put that in here. My first novel is based on my mother's life. So
wow.
It is. I thought I had it in here. Oh yeah, there it is. My first novel is The Baptist Junkie. That a lot of people didn't know that it was based on my mother's real life, her own stories that she shared with me. She even titled the book. She's passed on now, but she did get a chance to see and read the book, and now it's going to be a movie. So that is where it started for me. So, but I'm grateful for the experiences and, you know, just her life. And hopefully it has helped and will continue to help other moms situations. So thank you. So we got to get out of here. So.
I know we could keep going.
Yes, we go on, but that is our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us here at Courageous Woman Magazine Live. Thank you to my phenomenal guest, Reverend Dr. LaTonia Taylor. Remember, healing begins with truth, and today we've taken a powerful step If this conversation moved you, share it with the sister you think needs it. Please do that. The replays are available on YouTube, as always, on the Courageous Woman Magazine YouTube channel. And come back next week. We'll have another powerful conversation with another courageous woman. And if you want to know more about Courageous Woman Magazine, Courageous Woman Magazine Live, you want to be a guest, go to courageouswomanmag.com and subscribe. That way you'll get all the information and you'll be on our mailing list and you'll know all the different things that we got going on. We got books. You want to be an author, we got that. You want to be part of, you want to write your own book, we help you do that as well. So I am your host, Dr. Talisha Berry. Until next time, keep showing up, keep speaking out, and always be courageous. That is our show for tonight. Until next time, I'll see you next week. All right. Good night.
Good night, everyone.